Compliance and guidelines, moving on. The internal drive system should be arranged to utilize both parallel and perpendicular streets in identical blocks and clusters. And also in there, they talk about having a T intersection street so that as you're coming out of the street, you might have a vista or a view of open space. Where you have important public spaces or natural open areas can be highlighted. And to the maximum extent practicable, the drive should follow the natural contours of the site rather than kind of blazing a trail running down a hill. Within reason, of course, with slope, you have to do your slope percentages and stuff. Access and circulation.
When you talk about the 24 feet wide, isn't that our current city standards? There's no change in that language where it's 24 feet wide, because that's currently what our standard is.
That is correct, and that's to avoid, I hate to use this as an example, but it's to avoid narrow streets where you have incidences where you can't get emergency vehicles in, like you have had at the Village at Adams Ferry. The roads there are narrower. They don't have a 24-foot wide curb to curb. And people do park on both sides of the road, and because there's certain curves that go into there that were aesthetically put into there for traffic calming reasons, consequently you can't get your fire trucks or your emergency vehicles in. So we felt like a standard of 24 feet wide curb to curb was a standard we could hold, as long as there's adequate parking for all of the tenants within the development, and very, very limited on-street parking as necessary for loading and whatnot.
Now, making this a requirement, will that address what we had discussed previously regarding not allowing private streets to be installed? By putting this language in the quality design, are we addressing that issue, or does that need to be addressed separately?
It would still allow private drives, but they'd be at city standards.
So I guess my question is this taking care of the concern we have regarding private drives?
Yes.
I think so.
It's still allowing private drives.
Right, it's just that they're
but they have to be in city standards.
Yeah. And is that that was the main issue, as I recall, with the private drives?
Yeah, and that's how we
So safety considerations.
Right.
The reason I know on private drives, the reason that we talk about keeping that is just in case somebody wanted to get a community card.
Correct. And then it's still, well, and I guess probably a concern that I have is that what's happened is something goes in as a private drive, and then the residents want to have city snow removal and cleaning, and we end up taking those streets in and they don't meet our minimum standards. So we'll be addressing that concern too. So let's say something is a gated community and it is a private street. If they ever want to have the city take those streets on and they apply for that annexation or however they do it. I know we had that with Stonehaven. They came in, George probably remembers, from the Planning Commission and the City Council because they wanted to, it was too much of a hardship on the residents to pay for the snow removal. At least if a gated community comes in later and wants to receive city services, at least we can do it and we'll have enough space to, put the snow plows through and the fire trucks, correct?
Right. Well, and those really should be in the HOAs and the CCNRs within the.
That's usually where it comes up again.
That's where it does.
Currently.
But this will address that problem, so we don't have to discuss that any other part of this document. We're addressing it right here, correct?
Right. That's correct.
And you do realize in an apartment complex there is no such thing as natural contours when it's built. The whole site is completely leveled out and you're cramming them in.
You forget I'm from a mountain town. So
yeah, we're going to go natural contours if there was something.
If there are.
I'm just saying that on an apartment complex, there's no natural contours when it goes in.
I'm not sure how Overland Park deals with it, but I'm sure there weren't a whole lot there either.
Yeah.
But it's...
In case you find a particular lovely hill that you'd like to develop, yeah, in Flagstaff, Arizona, where I went to school for 4 years for planning, there were plenty of natural contours for which apartment complexes to work around.
Well, we're dealing with too now, I know it's at Woods Chapel, the issue there with the zoning and everything, that whole area that was zoned in at 14 was pretty big ravines and wetlands through there, so that was the idea.
Wetlands.
Right, but the idea there's,
Ballgame.
therefore, to design the roadways
Sure.
through there. Again, the building itself, not necessarily, is the drives through to access them.
Okay.
Right.
That's it, that's the idea here.
Yeah, okay. Vehicular access and circulation.
To have vehicle access and circulation, it should be, shall be from thoroughfare or collector streets. We don't want to have our major vehicle access and circulation going through local streets because those are residential and increase traffic. So we'd like to see those happen on major thoroughfare or collector streets.
Do we need to be more specific, saying type A
We'll-
collector?
We'll revise this to tie in with what our current standards say, which say
Okay.
the same thing, but a little bit
Yeah.
more
I
detailed.
say it needs to be a little more
Yeah, there's a little
specific
more
because I
detail.
think isn't it type A collector, there's a letter. for it.
Yeah, they're
Yeah, there are.
different, major collector, minor collector, so on and so forth.
So it needs
yeah.
to be a major
Yeah,
collector.
so this first piece here, we'll tie that in
Okay.
with our current standards, which say the same thing.
And then we go down to large developments. This would be more of our MF 14, and on up. Multiple primary access points from thoroughfare streets shall occur as follows. You have 100 to 199 dwelling units, which is fairly average. One additional primary access is encouraged. In fact, we should change that. Probably is required from encouraged because
Well,
just
I'm thinking about 150 units. How many buildings would that be in an MF 20?
like
let's say?
3 buildings.
Okay, so you're
Four
gonna have,
buildings?
so you're saying you got 4 buildings and you have to have 2 access points to the development for 4
No,
buildings?
150 on one access points, up to 200 units.
Well, I'm saying.
She's saying to change it from encouraged to required.
The 2 required, and I'm only thinking for emergency access.
That requires.
Case in point, I lived in an apartment complex, and again, this is in Tucson, Arizona, and it had something on the order of 250 units, and it only had 2 primary access, and for emergency vehicles to get in there and help people was just about impossible. It was so hard on them, and they were private drives and very narrow and stuff.
So this is gonna be wide enough, and there's, fire department requires a turnaround that be required. I just think is encouraged is okay. I think
Right.
required when you're having 4 buildings could be to make
Yeah.
them put 2.
Right, well, I think what we're saying is one additional emergency access is required.
Well, she's saying
Not
primary.
primary necessarily,
You
but
want emergency access?
Access is required.
Okay, wanted
What would be
to,
the difference between a primary and an emergency?
Emergency could have
A gate.
temporary barriers or rate gates on them, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't be, you know,
But do we really want that?
we have them.
No, but
Where?
they're unsightly.
Um,
Meadow, the one that's
Yeah.
been revamped, Meadow.
Meadow Ridge, it's autumn.
Villas of Autumn Bend.
Think-
Yeah,
What
and
does-
it looks
What type of
horrible.
burials do they have?
A big gate across
A
it.
gate, yeah.
And it looks terrible. It does.
Just-
I know, but
just
it's,
throwing it out there.
it's pretty unsightly.
Okay.
And I've had people ask me, why do you have a big gate there? I mean, it looks like you're being restrictive or something. It is.
Well, then leaving it as encouraged, I guess, it's fine. It's still stating the point that it is a preference.
Well, we're still requiring loopage within the development, correct?
Is that what we said earlier?
I hope so. Hey Janet, how often are those emergency access used, do you think, on average?
Actually, we go in the primary entrance.
Mm-hmm.
That emergency access is open during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, they close it to cut down on traffic at
Mhm.
night due to speed,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a straight shot through, and it encourages traffic in and out. I don't know if, I would assume the fire department has a key to it. We might have a key on the key rings for patrol now. At one point, we didn't, so I don't know if we do now or not.
So it may not even be.
It may not even be an emergency access, I don't know. Every time I've been on a call there, the fire department has used the primary access. Now, if it was a major fire and we had to get in there, we'll figure out a way in.
Okay.
I hate to keep bringing this up, but really kind of, the reason we put this is mainly for a gated community anyways. You guys, what are you guys gonna use if it's a gated community?